I want to just take a moment while we're here just to acknowledge Thich Nhat Hanh, who wrote the book that we're going to be talking about, and just take a few breaths, just feeling the presence that is everlasting and continuous that he brings to us in his writings and in the life that he has presented us with. And we can also take a moment of just also recognizing Cynthia West and the space that she has created for us to come together in. So the chapter that Elizabeth Christine asked me to talk about, which was this, it's called Who is Enlightened? It's chapter 17. And I'm going to read part of it, but before I read it, I just sat with the question of who is enlightened? And it reminds me of a beautiful saying by Rumi that says, find the answer in the question itself. And as we go through the chapter, it becomes clear that this monk who came to the Chandra Sutra wanted to have more understanding. And because he was looking for more understanding, he finds it. And as he finds it, he brings forward a clearer vision. So I'm going to go through and read. So you can just sit back and relax. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future, by practicing the insight that brings us to the other shore, are all capable of attaining authentic and perfect enlightenment. According to the Buddha, everyone has the seed of enlightenment or Buddha nature. That seed of enlightenment is present not only in humans, but in animals, plants, and minerals. Man is made only of non-man elements. And since man has the capacity of awakening, and we can say man, woman here, but I'm just reading the words, capacity of awakening, non-man elements have that capacity as well. Awakening just needs the right conditions in order to reveal itself completely. Buddha nature is not an abstraction. It's the capacity to be mindful, concentrated, understanding, and compassionate. And if we have the time to come back to ourselves, to practice mindfulness, and to develop our concentration, we can touch the seeds of enlightenment that is inherent in every one of us and help it grow. When I was a novice, I believed that it's very difficult to become a Buddha, that it takes many lifetimes. Enlightenment is not a matter of time. You cannot talk about enlightenment in terms of months or years, because enlightenment can come in an instant. Practicing mindfulness of breathing and mindfulness of walking, we learn to let the Buddha breathe for us, to let the Buddha walk for us. If we practice like this, you learn to become the Buddha, and the Buddha learns to become you. And it is very easy. In the beginning, you're a part-time Buddha, and slowly you become a full-time Buddha. Sometimes you fall back and become part-time Buddha again. But with steady practice, you become a full-time Buddha again. Buddhahood is there within our reach. You can become a Buddha wherever and whenever you like. It's really nice because you're a human being. The Buddha is always there. And as I was contemplating this Dharma talk, I remembered my first silent retreat, which was probably 30 years ago. And I was at a Trappist monastery, which allowed us to come in there and do a silent retreat. And the first 24 hours, it was a 3-day silent retreat, and the first 24 hours, all I could hear was all of the reasons why the eating, it had to do with food, and it had to do with the food that was being offered by this monastery, which was not to my liking or to my taste, And so so for the first 24 hours, that's all I could hear was that in my mind talking. And I was given in the kitchen of this monastery, there was a sign up that said, for any complaints of the food. And there was these little Post-it notes there that you could write on if you had complaints. And so after that, things could quiet down. But it reminded me of this possibility that happens where there's a lot of noise that's happening. But in that noise that's happening, there are things that are being seen, illuminated, that may not have been, what might not have been aware of before. And so they became quiet after 24 hours, but it was very interesting to have that experience. And I thought I would just share that with you, is that those moments of noise illuminated things to me, and also allow me to have compassion for things that might appear out of balance and in life, that I don't have to fight those things. So I really just wanted to share that, and I'm going to continue in the reading. But during that silent retreat, I was given something to contemplate, and I have never forgotten it. It comes from a teacher of mine, and it says, if this was what I was given to contemplate, and it's been a presence in my life for over 30 years. If anyone strikes your heart, it will not break. It will light the torch upon your path. And that was a really important thing for me to recognize all these places of hurt that have accumulated. And they're, on one hand, they are a gift. And when I'm in the ability to be present, to allow presence to flow through, they illuminate, they become illuminating or gathering of illuminating light, and not something to be how can I put it? They are they are gifts. And on one hand, they don't feel like a gift, but they are a gift. So I'm going to continue to read now. I just wanted to share those points just because that's what was present for me, is to learn how to stay steady in that compassionate wisdom, even in the moments where hurt is arising or suffering is arising, that it's there for the potential of that downpouring of compassion that is always there. So, as we continue, enlightenment is always enlightenment about something. You don't need to practice 8 years in order to have some enlightenment. Enlightenment is our daily business. If you practice mindfulness and concentration, you may get insight or enlightenment several times a day. Just breathing in, you can be enlightened about the fact that you are alive. To be alive is always a miracle, like breathing in and making one step. We allow the light of mindfulness to be lit like a candle in our heart. We know that to be walking on this beautiful planet Earth is a wonder, and that kind of awareness and insight can bring peace and happiness already. We don't want anything else. To be alive, to breathe in, to make one step is already wonderful enough. This is already enlightenment. And with the light of mindfulness in us, we become a saint, we become a Buddha, we become a Bodhisattva. We are a light for the world. Enlightenment to me is a deep understanding of our true situation. There is an individual enlightenment, and there is also collective enlightenment. There are those of us who are enlightened about the fact that our planet is in danger. And thanks to that enlightenment, we try to live in such a way that makes a future possible for the planet. But there are those who are still not enlightened. They don't know what is going on. They don't know that our planet is in danger. That is why we have to practice in such a way that can help people wake up so that they can also experience enlightenment. When they have enlightenment, they will naturally want to change their way of living to help protect the planet. That's why we have to produce individual enlightenment, and we have to help create collective enlightenment. So enlightenment is our daily practice. If you are inhabited by the energy of mindfulness and concentration, every moment of your life can be a moment of enlightenment. We know that even after the Buddha became enlightened, he continued to practice sitting meditation, walking meditation, and mindfulness breathing every day. And there is ample enough of this in the sutras. That is because everything is impermanent, including insight and compassion. Even if we have a very good insight, we must sustain our insight with concentration and apply it to every aspect of our life. Otherwise, we will lose that insight very soon. Nothing is permanent, even enlightenment, even happiness and liberation. Liberation, happiness, and enlightenment are generated by impermanence. And if we don't know how to nurture them, then they will change back into something else. So the next part of this has to do, I think, it has to do with Chanda and the Chanda Sutra. And he's going to a monastery, goes to Deer Park Monastery to try to attain the truth. And he's not satisfied with what he gets from the monks at Deer Park. He says, no one, let's see, at that time, people wanted to make sure that what they learned, that what they were learning was truly the teachings of Buddha and not something else. So they adhered to the very narrow interpretation of formula. All formations are impermanent. All phenomenon are without self. Nirvana is peace. End of quote. Therefore, wherever Chandra went to ask about the meaning of self and no self, asking who it is that attains enlightenment, he was told, no one. The Buddha said, there is no self. The monks were caught in the notion of being and non-being. Chanda wasn't satisfied. He had heard that Ananda, who had been the Buddha's attendant for many years, was staying at Kosambi. So he decided to go there to find Ananda. Ananda told him that I will help you. I have directly listened to the Buddha give teachings to Katyana. The Buddha told Katyana that to be caught in the notion of being is wrong view, and to be caught in the notion of non-being is also wrong view. Ananda continued, if one does not accept, does not grasp, does not stand firm in these ideas of a separate self, that's the in parentheses, does not compare and measure a separate self that one is then caught in, then one will see that when the causes of sufficiency are sufficient for suffering to arise, suffering arises. And when the causes are no longer sufficient, suffering ceases. This means that although suffering arises and suffering ceases, there is no need for a self, and the ideas of being and non-being cannot be applied. That was the main point that Chanda needed to know. You do not have to have a self in order for there to be study, practice, and enlightenment. And upon hearing the teaching, Chanda was enlightened. The Chanda Sutra is very precious because it preserves the authentic teaching and formula taught by the Buddha. And this is in quotes, all formations are impermanent. All phenomenon are without self. Nirvana is peace. Many people have misunderstood the Buddha. One of the mistakes they make has to do with the relationship between formation, phenomena, and nirvana. People have the tendency to think that nirvana is on the same level as formations and is another phenomenon. But nirvana is not a phenomenon. Nirvana is the ground of all formations and phenomena, just like the ocean is the ground of all waves and clouds. There are waves, there are clouds, but at the same time, the waves and the clouds are also the ocean. They have the ocean as their body. Every school of Buddhism invents a new name for the self. They're afraid that if they say there is no self, they could contradict the teachings of the Buddha. But the reality is so simple. If you know that the self you speak about is not an immortal soul, but only a manifestation, a coming together of many causes and conditions, then you are safe. It is the awareness, not the name, that is important. And I want to just remember Thich Nhat Hanh's teaching about interbeing. Interbeing. And which is not a notion of separate self. And the only other thing I was going to just add at the end of this talk were two of the two things that are in the Theragaya practice, which is this: the container, which is the external world as a pure realm of limitless light, the inner contents, sentient beings, and assembly of awakened ones, all of your daughters and sons similarly gathered beyond hope and fear, deeply complete. Alalaho Puja Ho. The visualization melts into light and dissolves into myself, receiving the blessings of invisible presence, self-nature as Arya Gaia, shimmering like a rainbow, yet empty of inherent existence. And those words come from Cynthia West.
I'll now share a poem by Cynthia West. For the longing that has lured us across deserts, over mountains, through loss, agony, aloneness, we give thanks. For taking away and for putting back, we give thanks, we give thanks, we give thanks. For breaking our hearts into completeness, for our imperfect bodies, senses, and understandings, for leading us to stand firm so we don't fall when our foundations shake, for emptying our houses until we can walk without fear, for cleaning us with pure water until we are windows to let the light shine through, for friends and our remembrance of them, for the lands we have traveled that teach us the wholeness of the earth and its people, for those who have hurt us, causing us to understand why we cannot inflict harm, for the illnesses, the limitations, the restrictions that have forced us to give up our little selves, for the freedom that does not come and go, for memories rich with beauty, grief, passion, loved ones lost, for this moment, our family, gathered hand in hand around the table, laden with the harvests we have brought to feed one another. For continuance, our children, grandchildren, corn, apples, beans, squash. For our circle of support, understanding, forgiveness, compassion. For the trainings, tests, trials, and warnings given to prepare us for the days that are now upon us. For weaving our fibers strong enough to resist the fierce winds. For joining us together in the wisdom that we grow from the one root. For the love to continue to sing, dance, and drum the tree of life into bloom. We give thanks. And now the dedication of merit. Practicing the way of awareness gives rise to benefits without limit. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings who give guidance and support along the path. We do not cling in any way to the virtue and goodness we have generated, in order that all beings may benefit from it. We dedicate it in the realm of totality. This virtue and all virtue gathered in the three times, we dedicate, as all Buddhas do, to supreme, non-residing awakening. May we attain the state of union in this life.